Hello, everyone. Welcome back to You Can't Teach Size. I'm one of your hosts, Lyss, joined by Brady today. Welcome back to episode 3. Brady, how you doing?
Um, Honestly, not 100%. I have COVID right now, which is really fun, really cool. My laptop, its charging port is also not working very well, so we're recording later than expected because I had to take a pin and try and fix that all up. But we're here. You can't complain. We're ready to go.
Well, it sounds like we both need to be spoon-fed broth and ice cream in our beds in
Yeah.
isolation for 3 to 5 days because Ville Heinola was sent down to the minors today. So I am also having the worst day of my life, and I think that mine takes precedence over yours and
Yeah.
who's having the worst day
Yeah,
because
you're you're
come
you're
on.
you're definitely having the worst day considering it's Thanksgiving and I wasn't able to go to any of my family dinners and eat turkey and also happy Thanksgiving to everyone in Canada. Shout out. But yeah, I
I'm
luck
thankful for nothing.
yeah.
So
Oh wow, yeah. I'm thankful for this podcast. Um
well, you know what I'm not thankful for is me sitting doing schoolwork and getting a notification on my phone from you tweeting on our account, someone check on Lyss. And I was like, oh God, what is this? And then that's how I saw the
Oh
stupid PR
really?
tweet. And also, I was just reminiscing about how many months ago, the very first time the Winnipeg Jets PR account ever shut off the replies was about Ville Heinola getting sent down to the minors again. So I was just
That's
like, oh,
true.
we've come full circle.
Hey, but
And I take full credit for
at,
this.
at least we can quote tweet though. That's
Oh
the big
God.
key.
And it's way more fun anyway. It's so funny. But and then I did my little quote tweet bit and then people are coming in, they're like, okay, you stalker, and they're talking about this. And Brady and I, no one understands how to commit to the bit quite like Brady and I do.
Hell
And
yeah.
it's frustrating when people don't get that we're trolling. Everything is a troll job. It's social media, it's Twitter.
It's
Get
all
offline.
it's all for fun. There's this one classic image. I send it to Liz all the time. It's a photo of LeBron James and it has a quote. She already knows. It has a quote next to it and it just
At the
says,
end of the
"At
day.
the end of the day, it's just Twitter." And it's just like, yeah, some people take Twitter way too seriously. Um
And isn't it like one of those like meme formats where it's like, you know, when they do like lyric quotes and stuff like that, where and so it's like a giant quote and it's like LeBron James and it's a picture of him like in his Lakers jersey just looking so
no,
disappointed or
it's
something like that.
it's not like a lyrics one. It's like when an athlete has a quote kind of thing. Like when like something that like
Oh,
Sportsnet would post or ESPN or
right.
whatever. And
Okay. Yeah.
I think it came from that, but anyways, as
No,
Liz,
but yeah.
go ahead. No, wait, go ahead. What?
I was just gonna say, like, genuinely, like, obviously, I have my Ville handle a bit, and it's a lot of fun, but like, it's still like not a like I think it's a bad move, of course, but I've been reading some other people on Twitter. Like I've seen a couple people like Tony, for example. I feel like I'm on Jet Centric again because we used to talk about Tony on
Yeah.
every single episode we did of that one. But Tony, I just saw he made a tweet talking about how he heard kind of through the wire sort of a bit that the Jets are expecting the first couple of games to really like be penalty intensive, so they're focusing on tailoring their defensive roster more towards penalty killing, and then they're going to transition like afterwards or something like that. I don't really buy it. I just think that the Winnipeg Jets truly don't believe that Ville Heinola or Dylan Sandberg for that matter is as good of a hockey player as Logan Stanley, which I would
I
disagree with. But they're professional scouts. I'm not, so hey, who knows? But
I disagree with you. I think that at this point, I go back to when Chevy had that quote about um at the deadline, or was it a couple years ago when we were saying, oh, we need a trade for a D-man. He said, like the answers are within. So I think that Chevy is higher on Hinola than we all think he is, but also I think that I think it's an asset management thing. I was tweeting about this earlier today. I think that Logan Stanley will be traded within the next
mhm.
like month and a half, I would say. I think that, obviously waivers plays a big key. And looking at both Villy and Dylan Sandberg, I think both of them have kind of surpassed Stanley on the depth chart. But at the end of the day, you can't send Logan Stanley down without putting him through waivers. And if Jonathan Kovacevic is going to get claimed through waivers, you absolutely know Logan Stanley will get claimed through waivers. And I think that the Jets believe he holds value. I think that he also does, just because NHL GMs are hilarious and will lick their chops and then they see a 6'7" D-man. But as we always say, you can't teach size. Oh, my video's all being weird. Anyways, take it away, Liz. I'm going to try and fix this really quickly.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think when it comes to Logan Stanley and what you're talking about, like how Jonathan Kovacevic got picked up on waivers, we'll talk about that a little bit later as well. Like I just find it really interesting the kind of talent that gets traded for a third round pick at the deadline goes through waivers without even being looked at the beginning of the year, right? Because teams are so
Hmm.
focused internally on, cap space and all this kind of stuff. So to me, it definitely makes sense to save it a little bit because you saw some of the trades that defensemen were going through this summer. Like they'll be able to get something for him. And I do think at this point, like all signs do point to Sandberg and Heinola being, like you said, higher on the depth chart, other than just priors and well, the decision made today to send Billy down leads me to believe that there is a chance that people still view Stanley as a bit better of a player. And there's also the whole sunk cost fallacy as well. We've been waiting on this guy for 6 years and he's still bum cheeks, pardon my French. So people are just, still waiting for him to pan out or whatever. And it's, when you've invested all this time into him, I've seen a couple people today hashtag draft and develop Logan Stanley only sort of thing. So like there's a little bit of that too, right? Where it might be the kind of thing where if they're really thinking this guy could become something, they just need a couple more years. I think that's so false and so incorrect.
Yeah.
Because the fact that it's hindering your own other players' development who likely have higher ceilings and at this point probably higher floors too, like I don't even know, but it sucks. I don't like it. I also don't like, just kind of, we'll talk a little bit too about some of the asset management when it comes to, Kovacevic and whatnot. It's like, listen, losing a guy who was never going to fully make your NHL team on waivers is not like a huge deal, but it's the whole concept of, bringing in Capabianco and him still being there. And,
Yeah.
why did you bring that guy in the first place when he might also go on waivers? And then if you didn't bring him in, maybe you wouldn't have had to clear this guy because maybe he could have been your seventh defenseman, all that kind of stuff, right? So there's just some weirdness going on in the Jets back end, especially when it comes to that sixth defenseman spot. I'm not looking for the Jets to win championships this year, so I'm looking for them to be using the lower slots on the roster or the emptier spaces on guys who could be something, the classic young guys who might be bad over bad guys that are.
Hmm.
But that being said, if you're looking to win championships, the sixth defenseman doesn't matter because Colorado Avalanche did it handily with Jax Johnson as their sixth D, right? So who gives a crap? But the Jets aren't looking to win a Stanley Cup this year, so I'd like them to see them use those spots on people who could actually become something. And we know at this point that Logan Stanley will not. But that's just how we see it, right? How I see it. At least I can't speak for you as well, but it
Yeah.
is what it is. So
Yeah, the way I see it is that Sandberg's going to get that sixth spot, and I think that, like I was saying before, it's because he's above Stanley at this point, and they obviously can't send Stanley down. Um, I think the main reason why Sandberg got that spot over Ville, even though I think Ville had a better camp, is just because of that PK usage. Like you were saying before, they want to have uh, a more PK driven roster to start the year. I think they just know. Like I was saying this also before too. I think that with Nate Schmidt being on the roster, having a guy who's in your kind of second or third pair, who's your offensive guy, is going to play PP2. I don't really see a pathway for Ville to join this team while Nate Schmidt's on the team. And I'm not saying to trade Nate Schmidt or anything like that. But obviously, I think the main reason that you're seeing Dylan Sandberg still on the roster right now and Ville Sandberg, or not Ville Sandberg, Ville Heinola sent down is because Sandberg just kind of fits more of the special team needs that they just have at the moment.
yeah, for sure. And it's the kind of thing where it's like, I don't know. You play how much of the game on special teams and how much of the game at 5-on-5. I've always been a little bit, especially on the penalty kill, I've had a little bit less buy-in on, penalty killing guys who aren't super effective at 5-on-5. What's the point in even having them? If the spot could be filled by someone who's more effective at the level that you play most of
Hmm.
the game at. But at this point, like I also want to see Dylan Tamrick succeed. So
Yeah.
I'm happy to have him in that role and hopefully he finds success there. Because again, if Logan Stanley were to be the sixth defenseman and find success there, I would shut the heck up because
Yeah.
I want my team to do well. But the reality is, based on priors, I have no inkling to believe that that's going to be the case.
I think it's a little bit insane to insinuate that we want Logan Stanley to fail. That's not the truth. We just want the best players to play, and we don't think he's currently the best player. in that spot.
That's exactly it, but it is what
Um,
it is. So that obviously happened today in the for us on the Jets front in the NHL. But a lot of other interesting stuff happened this week, notably some waiver stuff and also some new contracts. So we thought we'd touch on a couple of those. So the first one, I think I kind of wrote these down in somewhat of a chronological order, and I believe the Jason Robertson contract came first, but if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. But we'll chat about that one first. So, for those of you who don't recall the exact specifics of the contract, it's a 7.75 by 4 years, and I believe he is a UFA at the end of that, correct?
I'm not sure. I feel like this is a bridge contract. I don't think he
I
is.
think it's a bridge, but he like there you
I
you talk about this, I'll look it up.
Yo,
I'm
okay,
pretty
yeah.
sure.
Well, okay, so basically, Jason Robertson is the best player on the Stars. So him making 7.75. Again, shorter term, for 4 years, but that's, that's a guy who could have been commanding like Mitch Marner, Mikko Rantanen money in the kind of 9 to 10, $11 million if you really wanted to be a stickler there. But yeah, good job by Jim Nill, getting him signed before the start of the season. Again, I think on a previous episode, I said if I'm Jason Robertson, I'm making it known to them that I'm their best player, and um, in a league where you want to make playoffs and get those playoff revenue dates, those home games in the playoffs, those you don't want to be losing games right out at the start of the year because your best player is missing, because you wouldn't pay him. So good job on the Stars end. Happy for Jason Robertson to be getting some money, but I still think he could have got a little bit more. But regardless, Stars are looking better each day. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know what else to say about Jason Robertson. He's really good.
Yeah, hot take, he rocks.
Yeah,
Um,
hot take.
but
He's
yeah, no,
good.
I just quickly looked it up, and if he were born 23 days earlier, that would walk him into free agency, but it
Mm,
doesn't. So I think that's why a lot of people are
right.
interested by the contracts AEV because why would his age like it's just kind of interesting. Like if you were to take a lower amount because that means he gets to walk into free agency
hmm
afterwards, I would get that, but he's still yeah, not. So I think
And
that's interesting.
and by the end of that contract, I think it's either in 4 years or 5 years. The cap is supposed to jump by like over $10 million. So maybe this is him just
Right.
going, listen, I'll take a bridge, and fit into what you guys have right now. I think that also leads right till the end of Jamie Benn's contract too. So I think he's
That
basically
could be,
being
yeah.
like, get your my pay raise is Jamie Benn, is you're giving me his money immediately once we're done this. Um,
Right. No, for sure. And honestly, as he should.
yeah,
And the
absolutely.
vibes are infinitely better than Jamie Benz anyway, so that on its own deserves an extra 1.5 mil on top of that AAV. So,
Hell yeah. Um,
so go on.
no, I was just saying. Then I guess next we have Matt Barzal to
I think
talk
he
about.
actually might have come first, but now I don't remember. But it's
It
besides the
doesn't
point.
matter.
Matt Barzal is now making a lot of money.
Well, it wasn't his a extension for next year. Like like he was signed. He wasn't like
Yes, he
holding
was
out or
signed for this
anything
year. He wasn't holding out. No, no, no.
for sure. So he'll be making 9.15 for 8 years. Um, after this year, Matt Barzal, a criminally, he's always one of those guys who you've been watching and being like, this year he's gonna prove to be a bona fide star in this league. Not to say that he's not good. He definitely is one of the best. He's the best transition player in the league. He kind of has a bit of the like Nick Ehlers syndrome, where he seems like a guy who always should bust out. But the difference between them is that Barzal's been given the minutes. He's been given the line mates as much as you can get in the island. So it's a little odd that he hasn't really broken out. When we were doing our previews the other day, I was mentioning that I am starting to wonder if he is really that good. Um, there was I think it was Corey Schneider had not the goalie, the guy who's a hockey analytics guy, came out with an article saying that he's great transitionally, but he's been really bad at um producing high danger like shot assists. Basically he is able to transition the puck and skate with it and hold it, but he isn't really converting it to these high danger shots. I wonder if that changes now. Now that they have a new coach in, who is it? I'm his Lambert. What's his first name? Oh God, not Brad.
No, not Brad, unfortunately. I
Ryan?
want to say
No,
Derek.
Ryan. No, Ryan Lambert's puck soup. Derek? No.
I don't know who it is.
anyways,
Don't ask me his name. Don't ask me anyone's name.
anyways,
I'll
I
have to
wonder.
look at where I put on my hottest coaches list. But
Word, true, 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 true. But yeah, so I wonder if that changes now with a less defensively oriented system. Like Barry Trotz is obviously gone from there. But in my opinion, a bit of an overpay, but also at the same time, again, with the cap jumping up 10 or so million in 4 or 5 years, who knows? Like I said, if he really breaks out and shows that he is, a star center in this league, like that's a great contract. Absolutely.
yeah, absolutely. And I think that it is the kind of thing, there are worse players that you could be spending that money on, right? Like there are a lot of guys who have lots of money tied up that's not great as far as cap efficiency goes. Like not the worst. Like I would rather have that guy than two Adam Lowry-esque players for $9 million
Yeah.
split between them, right? So at the end of the day, like I don't hate it entirely, but it
Mhm.
is pretty contingent on what he can do under a new coach, right? Because like yeah, like you said, like obviously the Barry Trotz system is more of a boring style of hockey, but your team gets wins, so it really depends what you're looking for. That said, Alex Ovechkin is still likely, hopefully, going to surpass Wayne Gretzky's scoring record, and he, won a cup under Barry Trotz, right?
Yeah.
So players can still score and produce offense under the guy. So, but as far as like microstats go and just kind of all around, Matt Barzal's a great player. So I'm hoping for his own sake that he does pop off a little bit. I'd love to
Yeah.
see some more finishing come from him. Like I think he's, very much a pass first type of dude. So if I don't know, I don't watch a lot of Isles hockey, but if he can start scoring some more, I think that on its own will make people think that this contract is worth, what it is. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
I think the main thing is it's always better to overpay your stars than overpay your bottom of the roster guys. And I think
Oh, for sure.
that's where we can end it on him. Next, we have Mackenzie Weegar. I have a question list. Is Brad Treliving a wizard?
He
Like,
might just be. I think he was a Slytherin at Hogwarts when he went.
but the flames are red though. I feel like he's got to be. No, I don't know. I don't
No, but
know.
he's yeah. I don't know. I don't know. I
But he always comes
I'd
out
have
on.
to get to know the guy to get a
He
good sense. He's just giving Slytherin to start, but who knows?
the reason we say this, Mackenzie Weegar, the second half of the Matt Kachuk trade, he has extended him for 6.25 times 8 years, which is absolutely bonkers in my opinion. Like Mackenzie Weegar is a top 10, maybe even top 5 defenseman in this league. Like he is easily the most underrated defenseman.
He's so good. And I think the thing that's frustrating about him is just like the style of player that he is. Like, do you remember he had like one really bad mistake in the playoffs and
Yeah.
all of a sudden everyone's like, you said Mackenzie Weegar was overrated. He's obviously trash. It's like, my brother in Christ, like the game is more than just one single
Yeah.
play. Like, watch this man.
Yeah.
He is so phenomenally good. And I remember a lot of people were worried when Aaron Ekblad got hurt last year. They're like, he plays, a good portion of his minutes with him. How is this going to affect his numbers? Spoiler, it didn't. He was fantastic. Florida, decent team last year, of course, by all means. But Mackenzie Weegar has been a notably good defenseman for quite some
Yeah.
time. And even if he's just a good defenseman, with the way the NHL and the cap and everything is working right now, 6.25 for a good defenseman is a great deal. So 6.25 for a great defenseman is a fantastic deal.
Dude, the Jets are paying like basically 6.25 to Neil Pionk, and he's like a third pair defenseman right now. Like
No,
Mackenzie Weegar is so good. I it's crazy.
He
I
would
saw
eat Darnell Nurse for breakfast, and he's making like $3 million less than he is.
yeah, I like the Flames are have such a good decor. It's crazy to me.
And I remember at first when that trade first happened, I remember that's the trade that I've been the most like I was just flipping back and forth. I was like, so good, so bad, so good, so bad, like whatever. And people were like, oh, it's a fantastic trade for Florida because these guys are on expiring deals, whatever. The contracts that they both signed with Calgary now make this look like the stupidest trade
oh,
that Florida's ever made.
insane. Yeah, there was a lot of risk on the deal. But at the same time, like Treliving's hands were kind of tied. He only had a certain like number of teams he could even trade Kachuk to because no one was going to trade for him without signing an extension for him. But now that he has like both Huberdeau and Weegar extended for like having both Mackenzie Weegar and Jonathan Huberdeau for like $16 million combined is crazy. That's insane. Like that's nuts. And I think where GMs shine the most and prove how good of a GM they are is when their backs are against the wall and what they need to figure out. How do they get out of a situation? And like Brad Trill, imagine if even if Matt Kachuk wasn't forcing his way out, like this still is like a deal. If I was in his position, would be like absolutely. If I know that I can get Mackenzie Weegar signed to 6.25 times 8. Also, sorry, side note, I had someone being like, because I responded to I replied to, it was either Friedman or whoever when they tweeted the contract out and said basically the same thing, something along the lines of Brad Living is a wizard. And someone replied to me and was like, yeah, let's see how that contract looks in 5 years. It's like, dude, the Flames are in win now mode. They have a top 5 goalie. They have a great forward core and one of the best D cores in the league, if not the best. Like, who cares down the road? And also, 6.25, especially with the whole cap jump stuff, is nothing. That's a drop in the bucket. Like,
No,
six.
absolutely. And I
E-
think if you're looking at the Jonathan Huberdeau one too, like that's one of the players that has been talked about a little bit as being overrated and all this kind of stuff. But like you were saying before, overpay your stars if you're going to overpay
yeah.
anyone. And it's the kind of thing where it's like, we'll sit here and we'll talk about fancy stats and all this kind of stuff, but we're also not stupid. We understand that a guy who put up 115 points last year, like, you can pay that guy.
Mhm.
Who cares what he looks like? At the end of the day, goals win games, right? So if you have someone who's just like a natural scoring talent and point machine, like this dude had almost 90 assists last year. Like, that's someone that you want to accommodate on your team because you want pucks in the net, right? So I think that between those two contracts, like that's a great situation to be in going forward. And who cares about even going forward, mind you, because right now looks pretty good for the Calgary Flames.
Yeah, absolutely. Nothing else to say there. Mackenzie Weegar's great. The Flames are gonna win the Pacific and could definitely challenge for the Cup this year. And if they don't
I'd love
challenge
to
this
see it,
year,
yeah.
they'll challenge next year. They're gonna
But
be a
also,
good team for a while.
they were beefing with the Jets the last couple of preseason games, so like, don't love that.
Well, they got
But
spanked, so
Rasmus
big save,
Anderson,
Dave.
Rasmus Anderson talking shit about Blake Wheeler with the captain thing, hilarious.
What did
So
he
funny.
say? I missed that.
No, they were scrapping because again,
Oh,
Blake
okay, yeah,
Coleman
right,
comes in
right.
and slams someone. It's like, is Dominic Toninato was in the corner? I saw this coming from a while away. I was like, oh my god, this is gonna be so ugly. It was. I was like, wow, I'm a genius. But it wasn't great. And then they were all tussling a bit, and then the refs pull like Rasmus Anderson away from Blake Wheeler. I didn't actually see this, but like Dan Robertson was talking on the thing, and he's like, "Well, I'm pretty sure Robertson's making a joke about the C and talking shit about the C. Where's the C on Blake Wheeler's jersey?" And I was like, honestly, good. That's hilarious.
Hmm.
It's like when
That's
Austin Matthews was doing the thing with the Scott Sabrin. Like, who are you? Who are you? Hilarious,
that's good.
hilarious.
That's good banter. That's got to be up
It's
there with
fantastic.
with go dye your hair. There's so many good hockey chirps videos.
No, exactly. So that was funny, but I'm also Flames a little,
Mhm.
but at least they're not the Oilers. So
But
go Flames,
they
go.
also got shut out by their former goalie, Big Save Dave, which is hilarious because I
Big
thought
Save Dave is not good.
I mean, who knows? Maybe he'll play more this year and be decent, but behind Hellbuck, I
No.
doubt it. Uh,
Yeah, no, literally. But
anyways,
worth mentioning, Nick Hague also got a contract today. I think it's just about, just over 2 mil or whatever like that for a couple of years, 3 years, I think it was.
mhm.
And I think Vegas is surprise, surprise, color me absolutely shocked in some decent cap trouble. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of parts they move or who magically ends up on LTIR in the next couple of days.
They really love to play right up against the cap. Um, really like I don't really have much to say about Nick Hague. He's a young guy, signed a kind of a bridge deal. I'm glad to see that they got him got him signed for the season. But I saw some stuff going on. This is completely unrelated. This popped into my head. I feel like I have to mention it. This is stuff regarding Kyle Dubas with like they haven't re-signed, like Kyle Dubas isn't signed past this year, and they're waiting to see will they have any playoff success, and if for some reason like Kyle Dubas isn't signed by the end of this year, I could totally see Vegas being like, hey, Kelly McCrimmon's been not great. Let's go get this guy who like at the end of the day, say what you want about Kyle Dubas, he has built together a team that is constantly good enough to make playoffs and be one of the top teams in one of the hardest divisions every year. Um,
Yeah.
sorry, this is completely unrelated. I just figured,
No, no, that's no, and it's a good point. And I think that Vegas is also an organization of doers.
yeah,
Like, do they always do the right thing? I don't know, but they're not afraid to jump on, what they want to do. And I feel like it'd be a good fit because Kyle Dubas is also not afraid to jump. And like to
yeah.
me, one of the best examples of that was at the expansion draft when he did a little bit of moving around with what's his name? Aaron Crow? No,
Oh,
Jared McCann.
Jared
Jared
McCann.
McCann. Yeah, right. So it's like doing, and it didn't necessarily maybe work out the way they wanted to. I don't know, but the concept of it made a ton of sense, and
Yeah,
it's just like he's not afraid to do stuff. And Vegas would be such an organization that would give him all the liberty in the world to do stuff.
yeah.
I don't know if Cal Dubas is the GM that everyone's chalked him up to be, but like you said, at the end of the day, he's turned what was a disaster of a franchise that had, first top five picks every year and couldn't manage to pull anything together, turn him into a really, really strong
Mhm.
team that this is a conspiracy theory for another day, but if they were in any other market, I fully believe they would have been
Yeah,
significantly better by now.
absolutely. Yeah, I just think that it's very funny. I was talking with some of my Leafs friends, and
Boo.
I know, and we were talking about, like, they kept saying, like, he hasn't earned anything. Who it doesn't fucking matter. Sorry, doesn't matter if sorry, I'm trying to cut down on my swearing. My dad listened to the podcast, and he's like, maybe it's just because I'm your dad, but I don't love you hearing don't love hearing you say the F word all the time. Anyways, not the point. Um, my Toronto friends were saying, um, it doesn't matter unless you win a round. It doesn't matter, and I'm like, at the end of the day, Kyle Dubas can only really do so much. Like, sure, you can say it's his fault, that the Leafs didn't win this year. Let's just say hypothetically they lose in the first round. I think we can all imagine that. Um,
Not hard, not hard.
I don't think that it would be Kyle Dubas's fault if they lost in the first round, unless specifically it is because of their goaltending. Like, that's the only thing I can pin on
Yeah.
him and be like, that is the one question mark that everyone has about the Leafs. And if that faults, that's absolutely a reason to be like, Kyle Dubas, you didn't do what you needed to do here.
I also think the playoff success thing is just a little bit frustrating because people will lose their minds over it. Like, I feel like the best example is, and as much as I hate always putting the spotlight on them, is Toronto and Montreal, right? Toronto, over the last 3 years, much better team than Montreal. Better players, better overall win record. But Montreal made it to the Stanley Cup final, right? Way worse team.
Mickey
Ended up being
Mouse.
a worse team after that anyway. But people are like, oh, but they won in the playoffs. Oh, but they won in the playoffs. Look at them. They suck.
That
Like,
was
what? Oh my
that was
God.
a Mickey Mouse playoff run. I don't
Like,
count.
a good
It's
team is a good team. Like, they will end up being fine. Like, they have a lot of good pieces and all this kind of stuff. Montreal, not a good team. Like you said, yeah, Mickey Mouse. And what happened the next year? Hot trash.
yeah.
So
I
who was surprised? No one was surprised about that.
I
I didn't have them finishing dead last in the league, I'll be real with you, but I had them finishing like seventh in their division.
mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I saw a meme the other day, and it was like, I can't believe that this was only like a year or two ago, and it was a screenshot of, like, those three kids that they're sitting on a couch. It's like three guys, and then it's like, it looks like they're like talking, like having a conversation, and then it just said, are we a really good line? And then it had Eric Stahl, Joel Armia, and Corey Perry's face put on them, and I'm like, oh my god, because, like, I refuse to believe that was like a
Is that
what
like their second line?
it was their fourth line, but then they ended up being like a
Oh,
second line because they just
right.
they did everything because
Well, I'm pretty sure
Montreal.
at the end of the playoffs, yeah, Montreal ran their four lines, like each
Mhm.
like 15 minutes a night. It was super
Well,
weird.
it's because they had four, like, third lines, basically.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
like there was no line that was like very clearly their top line. I mean, I guess you could
No.
say like the Suzuki Caulfield or whatever line, but then after that it was like just
Josh
guy.
Anderson,
Josh Anderson's everywhere.
who would never be traded for Pierre-Luc Dubois.
No, never, absolutely not. Jesus. Anyways, we can move on now.
But yeah, no, it's been an interesting week with a couple of contracts, but also Brady and I were talking before this a little bit about kind of the waiver situation of this week. And like, obviously, we knew it was coming that a lot of players were going to be put on waivers, but holy Dinah, was that a long list of players that got put on waivers. And also, just got to say, I got to spite the Leafs in every single podcast that we do just because fuck those guys.
Whoa.
But when people are like, oh, people always pick up players off of the Leafs waiver wire just to spite them because everyone hates the Leafs. Everyone's out to get the Leafs. Like that's what people were saying last year when the Jets picked up Adam Brooks. And I'm like, no, it's a hometown guy. Why else would the Winnipeg Jets pick him up?
And
Besides the point.
and the
Every
Jets
Leaf
sucked.
cleared. So, ha.
Ha.
And I also think it's really like absurd to think that good teams putting several players on waivers means that they won't get picked up. Like naturally, if your team is very strong, it means the guys are cutting are stronger than the guys who are being cut from bad teams. Like that's just how that works, right? So it makes sense for players that are waived by better teams to
Yeah.
get picked up, but in this case they didn't, and I thought that was funny.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't have anything to comment regarding on Toronto. Otherwise, I'll get yelled at by my friends.
Good, good. Send them my way.
Hell
I'll
yeah.
fight them.
The main things I guess to talk about waivers wise, there was going back to Montreal, and I kind of mentioned it before. Jonathan Kovacevic of the Jets. If
Got
you're
a
not
good one. They got a good one.
if you're not a Jets fan, you are probably saying who. He's a guy who played for the Moose for a long time and has been kind of like a bit of a project. But has
And he's now the second best defenseman on the Montreal Canadiens starting lineup.
Yeah, he is. Oh man, their defense core is
Ugly.
nightmarish. Like who's their is it David Savard is their best D man and
Yeah.
he
Chris
kind of
Weidman.
that's nightmare fuel right there. That's
No,
yeah.
this is the second emotional support defenseman Montreal has taken from Winnipeg in the last couple of years. We're getting just
R.I.P.
past the anniversary of the Sami Niku.
R.I.P. Sami Niku.
But Jonathan Kovacevic is a better hockey player than Sami Niku was at the time of the waiver pickup.
Yeah.
So I wish him all the best in Montreal. And who knows? Maybe he'll become their best defenseman by November. So
Who knows?
I'm happy because I want to see him play. Right? Like
Yeah.
he deserves to get to play. Nice
Yeah.
kid. Has some potential. So happy for him.
He's worked his ass off and definitely deserves a spot. Obviously, the Jets have a crazy backlog on D. He was kind of a guy who you might have had penciled in to be like a 7th or 8th guy, depending on how you have it. But Kyle Capobianco, man, and Logan Stanley.
Gotta have him. Gotta have him.
Hell yeah. Going back to the Jets picked up, I'm going to try to pronounce his name correctly. Axel Janssen. I'm not looking at it right now. I just have AJF written down on my.
Literally, that's what we'll just call him. Beautiful hair man.
Yeah, exactly. They picked him off waivers. He played for the Caps. So obviously Scotty Arneal was the PK coach in Washington, so he has some familiarity with him, and he also is a guy who played PK there. So I think it makes a lot of sense. I was immediately like, who is this guy? But I looked him up. I think he's like 24. He had like 34 points in 44 AHL games and played like 20 games, I would say, with the Caps last year. And I asked a Caps guy who I know what should we expect from him, and all he said was hair, speed, and one other thing. I'm gonna bring it up. I'm sorry, I'm so stupid. I should have had this up. He said hair.
My guess would be mid.
Hair, speed. Actually, he said good. So
okay.
So and even when I was name searching him on Twitter, it seems like this was a guy who a lot of Caps fans had as like an answer within who can step up potentially in the coming years.
Okay.
Again, he's only 24, so he seems like a guy who can, but is still young, still finding his spot in the league, and so he should make the Jets opening day roster, I would imagine. Because otherwise,
there's nothing I love more than a reclamation project, right? Like the Evgeny Svechnikov, like bring it in. Like I'm more than happy to give a chance to someone who is young and might be bad over someone who's old and already is bad. Oh man, twice in one episode. Sorry, everyone.
He's also a very pretty man, so I will give him that also too.
I'll be honest, I'd never heard the name before, but I had seen that headshot before because I'm pretty sure I'd seen people talk about his hair. So that shows how shallow I am. Get me off the podcast.
Yeah, too thirsty.
A couple of other notable names that I pulled from waiver wire. Obviously, always got to mention Nick Patan put on waivers by the Minnesota Wild. Very disappointed to see that. Rip to our king. We will never admit that he's maybe just not good enough to be an NHL regular. Paul Maurice is still haunting him to this day. So always got to bring that up for sure. I'm happy that Connor Ingram got picked up by Arizona. I think Connor Ingram has terrific vibes. Can't speak enough to how wonderful I think his vibes are as far as NHL players go. Lovely fellow. I hope to see him have some success in Arizona. That'd be great. Happy for them. Always want to take a chance on a young goalie with potential if you have no one. So happy for him on that.
I yeah, absolutely. I think Connor Ingram's like one of those young guys who eventually one of these days will prove that he can either be a backup or even maybe a fringe starter. Who knows? Which is why I'm very confused that he was put on waivers by the Preds, considering their backup goalie is Kevin Lankinen, who like
Ooh,
is not
bad.
like he's a goalie, you know, like he's a backup. He's very clearly a backup, and like I just don't understand why you wouldn't. I would say Ingram is as good, if not, even if he is slightly worse than Kevin Lankinen is. Like Ingram has way more potential, and I just don't really see the reason why they would give up on a guy like that. Maybe they thought they can sneak him through, but yeah, that one was a bit of a head scratcher. But best of luck in Arizona. I don't know who
Speaking
else.
of Arizona, they picked up Valimaki too, which I thought was a great grab
Yeah,
from them. Again, reclamation project-ish. I wouldn't even consider him to be bad enough to be called a reclamation project. But I think it's a great grab by them as well.
I feel like
Other than
just
that,
I feel like just the other day he was playing like top four in Calgary. Like obviously Calgary's gotten better, but like I feel like
I
just like a
mean,
couple
so
of
is
years
Ville
ago.
Heinola, and he got sent down
Well,
today. So
okay. Well,
leave
are you upset, Liz? Are you
me
upset?
alone. Leave me alone. I won't stop talking about it.
That's okay.
It's been
Um,
years. Showed up at the very first preseason game of last year, the only time I've ever brought a poster to a sporting event in my life with my picture of Ville Heinola, the meme that John Malloy made that Ville actually posted himself because of how shitty that season was and how they treated him like dirt and just whipped him around. Like,
for
oh my God,
for
so
those
bad.
for those wondering, the meme was basically Ville Heinola like edited over the photo of Bernie sitting there with like his mitts and his hands crossed and just kind of sitting there doing nothing.
Because
Um,
Ville played like 30 pro games in the span of like 10 months or something stupid like that. It was the stupidest thing in the entire world. And so I showed up at the beginning of last season, fully committed to Ville season. And what happened? Here
didn't
we are a year later.
didn't they
And
almost like not let you in with the poster or something like that? I feel like I remember you saying, and maybe I'm wrong. I mean, you could just
no,
say
I
if
was
I'm.
worried they wouldn't. But because I wanted to put something like mean on the poster about like the Jets or Paul Maurice or something. So I was gonna bring in my marker and write it in there, but then I decided to put it's Ville season instead. And then the guy like interviewed me outside on the news and he's like, "Can I see this
Oh
poster?" I
yeah,
was like, "Absolutely, you can."
I totally forgot about the
And I
news
remember the guy
thing.
was like talking to me and I was like, "Yeah, like my favorite players are getting to play." He's like, "Oh, who's your favorite player?" I was like, "Ville Heinola." He's like, "What?" Oh, and
Oh
then
man,
I posted it on Instagram and Ville Heinola liked it. So that was really funny. I
yes,
like memed the shit out of him. So anyways,
wag
fun
status
times. Rip
soon.
to a legend. Wag status when. No.
Yeah, real.
Um but
Um,
yeah, so Moose games I guess will be a lot more fun this year. So we will see.
mhm.
Well, not more fun because he's always played for them
Dude,
and he will continue to
the
play
Moose are
for
gonna
them.
be actually kind of sick. Like
Dude,
they're
power play with Ville Heinola and Brad Lambert like injected into my veins.
and
Like if
like
I'm
Chad
passed
Lucius in
out, that will
front.
revive me.
There's
Oh,
Jansen Hark. Oh, I guess we can mention that Jansen Harkins passed through waivers. There was a whole on Jets Twitter. There was a huge debate on
he's
if
definitely
the
gonna get claimed.
on whether or not he
Oh,
would get claimed, or and if it's a good idea, if like that's bad asset management. And everyone was like, a lot of people were like, he would never get claimed, and a lot of people were like, he was gonna get
yeah.
claimed. It would be stupid of them to send him down. Anyways,
He's
who cares?
every team has 6 Jansen Harkins in the AHL,
Yeah,
including us.
yeah.
We don't need that guy. I
Dominic
don't care.
Toninato is a Jansen Harkin, but better.
Literally, literally. And even like a Mikey Esamont is probably a better Jansen Harkins too. Like half those dudes. Like come on. Like every team's got him. No one needs that. Like
Exactly.
maybe if it was later in the year and someone's looking for an extra forward or something, who knows? But
And
not
this
now when everyone's
especially
putting their
when
Jansen Harkins on waivers.
exactly, yeah, especially when yeah, exactly.
But
It's
whatever, yeah. But it was a lot of fun to see all those players. Like a couple of Mike Riley I found very interesting, but again,
oh,
high cap hit. So fair. I talked to a lot of different Bruins fans and they're like one of the times that, the eye test doesn't necessarily match up with the stats, which I don't entirely believe, but apparently he's very like mistake prone, which
Yeah.
doesn't always
He
reflect in stats, which is very, very fair. So
he reminds me very much of like a Jake Gardner when Jake Gardner was good.
yeah,
Like
that's honestly super
where
fair.
he by the numbers is good, but when he messes up, like it's very clear, it's very obvious, and everyone can pinpoint and go, "You suck." Like so,
Yeah, and it's the kind of thing too where it's like, for example, Mike Riley is like a penalty machine, right? So it's like
yeah,
you're naturally going to be on the ice for less time, therefore your results
yeah,
aren't going to be as bad and stuff like that. So lots of interesting things, but I still think that Mike Riley could be a decent defenseman, but he's also being paid $3 million. So if he's not worth that to you, fair enough. Nick Foligno also on waivers.
I I have one of my Boston friends who cheers for Boston was saying that was very pessimistic when they saw line rushes and having him on like the second line, but then was very relieved to see that he was put on waivers. But he's still practicing with the team because obviously he cleared through waivers. No one claimed him. Same with Riley. Um, I don't know exactly if clearing waivers has any effect on your cap hit. I don't think it does, but it'll be interesting to see what the Bruins end up doing with those guys now that they've cleared.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
And I think that another thing that I want to mention about what's going on in the NHL this week and beef the NHL a little bit is the literal global series going on in Prague right now. Super cool. Haven't seen shit about it.
Yeah, no,
Which is brutal. They're playing in freaking Prague. Prague
yeah.
is like one of the prettiest cities I've ever seen in my life in photos. Of course, I've never
In
been there, but it looks really nice. And I feel like I haven't seen anything about it. And it's like, man, this is so lame. Like, what a cool concept.
and
And why are we not promoting the crap out of this?
yeah, it was very like like it wasn't promoted well, very clearly, because like I was sitting here. Also, it was also just weird because it was like at 1 o'clock our time. The first game was played on Friday, and also Friday evening, Saturday evening. There's still preseason games for other teams going on. So it's like if you really want to have this event be like something interesting and have a lot of people tune in from all around the world. Obviously, the global series is for the people locally who live there, but obviously you want to have your audience tune into it and go, oh hey, the NHL is the season's beginning, the first game is on, let's go watch. Like I was sitting here working and I'm like, it's like 1:30 and I'm like, oh, isn't that game on right now? And then I like went to go look and try and put it on, and of all the channels that I have on like Shaw here, it was on none of them. I mean, obviously
That's bad.
that's a whole other issue with the you know NHL Pass and all those things, which I think
Oh
are
yeah.
so dumb
Their
and just
television contracts are terrible.
it's bad. And like it just promotes illegal streams. Like if there, ooh, actually this is another thing. There was I think Sportsnet now is like now intertwined with the NHL Game Pass or something like that. And Dom Luszczyszyn, hopefully I pronounced that correctly,
Yeah.
from the Athletic, was saying that now they won't even allow you to stream it on multiple, like you can't have multiple streams up at once. So you can't be like on your laptop watching the Preds versus the Sharks, and then also on your computer, like a TV. If you're signed into the same account, you can only watch one game at a time, which is
Well,
bonkers because
that's
like
awful.
especially with how the NHL scheduling goes, it's like so many times you'll have like a Saturday evening where like there's like almost every single team is playing. And like I don't know about you,
Mhm.
but I like to have multiple games on sometimes if
Yeah.
if I'm just, specifically having a night where I'm watching NHL hockey, cheering on my
Mhm.
fantasy guys. Um it's just bonkers to me. I feel like that needs
Well,
a whole reshaping, but
and I don't know if
anyways.
it's like this during the regular season or whatever, but there are a couple of games, preseason games that weren't being streamed for the Jets and whatnot, which is like whatever, I don't really care, but they were on Sportsnet now. So I'd plug in my computer to my HDMI on my TV and it wouldn't play. It was like blacked out. Like when you try and like take a screenshot of Netflix and it's like a black
Yeah,
screen because they're like, no. It was doing that same thing for me just trying to put it on TV so I could watch it with my dad. It's like, what is
that's
wrong with you guys? Like I just feel like there are so many different things that just make this game so much harder to watch than it needs to be.
yeah.
Like literally, Tomáš Hertl scored a goal in his hometown of Prague, Czech Republic. Is that not the coolest thing ever? That like some of these European players never get to experience scoring an NHL goal in front of their entire community. Like I feel like we should be talking about that a lot more.
Mhm.
And I'm also thinking like when the Jets had this global series back a couple of years ago, they weren't playing at the same time as preseason, were they?
No. It was in like mid-November.
Yeah.
Because remember, Paul Maurice had to tell Sammy Niku and Christian Vesalainen, and the two players on the team other than Patrick Laine, who were Finnish, that they were not playing in the game. And was it that they didn't even get to travel with them? I can't even remember. Just insane.
Yeah, that's a whole other can of worms that we don't need to open right
Sorry,
now. But
I just had
all
to
that to
mention
say,
it.
there's a global series going on, and I genuinely do not know who's won any of those games. My little brother came up to me the other day. He's like, "Isn't it so weird that San Jose and Nashville played each other twice in a row to start the season?" And I was like, "Yeah, they're in Europe." And he's like, "What?" Like my brother like follows hockey like decently,
The
but like
only
not well enough that it wasn't like shoved in his face.
the only thing that I know is that Nashville won the first game, and that's just because I have UC Saros on one of my fantasy teams. And that's
Fair,
the
fair.
only thing I know. I didn't even check for Saturday. I didn't even like. I think they're done now and probably making their way back to. I see. I don't even know. I think they just played the two games back to back on Friday, Saturday. But, yeah, like I said, it's also. I mean, you know, Nashville and the Sharks are like two teams that I'm not super amped to tune
Very
into, but,
true.
uh,
Yeah,
but yeah,
especially the Sharks.
especially the Sharks. Yeah, but it makes sense why they're there considering Thomas Hurdle. Tomas Hurdle.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then I think kind of the last thing that we wanted to touch about what happened in, hockey stuff this week in the NHL was a couple of PTO releases that were noteworthy. Mostly Sonny Milano to me. I don't think I fully get that one.
Hmm.
I'm sure there's something wrong with the dude as a whole, because otherwise I know he didn't have like a super impressive camp and whatnot. I read that from a couple of people,
Hmm.
but it's like also like priors, like hello. Like, are you
Yeah,
sure this man can't contribute to your team in some capacity? Granted, Calgary is a little bit more stacked than some other teams, but I feel like he should be somewhere, unless he's like a terrible person.
yeah, and like in regards to the whole like, oh, maybe he had a bad camp. Like again, it's crazy to overvalue like 3 to 4 preseason games with a new team and a new system over like multiple years of full seasons. Um,
Right.
so that one made a little like no sense to me. Um, I'm just speculating, and just from rumors I've heard. I don't know. This is not concrete. I've heard he isn't a great guy. Nothing
Yeah.
nothing bad. Nothing bad like we're gonna talk about later,
Oh
unfortunately.
God.
Um, but uh, but I've heard he's just maybe a bit of a dink. So who?
Yeah,
But
and
but
if that's the case, maybe people are like, it's not worth putting that up for me for someone who I could replace with someone else on my team, and that's
it
fair enough to me. Like whatever.
it's crazy. But it is crazy to me that he has not gotten a contract. And like even I'm surprised that even Anaheim isn't being like, listen, man, we'll give you a minimum
Yeah.
deal and trade you to a winner at the end of the year. Like I just don't understand it. I don't get it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always, this is going back, like, and I'm sure, when we're chatting closer to playoffs and stuff, I get so pissed off when people are like, playoff performer. Like, the game isn't played 82 games this season, and then playoffs are like 8 to 12 games after that. And if someone can't perform for 82 games, why the hell do you want them on your team for the season?
Yeah.
Don't even get me started on that whole shebang. But I don't even remember where I was going with this. Oh yeah, no. So if he was able to perform in 82 games last year, and then other seasons before that, it's like, why are you taking into account preseason games, which you talked about? Like, obviously they're always so skewed with different things. Like, people are maybe trying to test out their goalies, so they're working on peppering shots. It's like, who knows? Like, there's always so many different
Yeah.
factors at play.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. Other than that, the other main PTO release. I mean, there was other like everyone had PTO releases. Like Jason Demers got released. But the other notable one to mention is Jake Virtanen was released from his PTO in Edmonton. To which I say hallelujah, great.
good riddance.
Good riddance. Glad to see that a guy who shitty person, shitty guy, also not that good at hockey. So even if you were to, we've all joked about how the Oilers are now turning into you know, the guys that stick their neck out for guys who are, have had a harder road and have, not a harder road, but have had some issues in the past, let's call it. But even they said we're too good for Jake Virtanen now, thank God. I think I saw a funny tweet that was like, the Oilers knew that they couldn't sign Jake Virtanen when they saw that even Evander Kane was cropping him out of his photos of the team.
Oh, gracious.
But anyways, shitty guy, shitty player. Thank God that Vancouver took him and not Nick Ehlers at like sixth overall way back when. Thank you, much appreciated. Thank you, Jim Benning. But yeah, he sucks, and I don't. That's where I'll end it for my bit. Do you have anything you want to say on that, Liz?
Yeah, shitty hockey players don't need to play in the NHL because there are lots of good hockey players out there. And with all the other circumstances surrounding the guy as an individual, I don't know why he was ever granted a PDO to
I
begin with.
agree.
But here we are. Goodbye. Don't care.
Peace out.
Hopefully I never have to talk about him again.
I was
So
about to say, thankfully, hopefully we don't have to talk about him ever again. Hopefully he fucks off. Anyways,
excellent.
um, the last thing I have, or that list has written down here, uh, is is shout out to Vancouver sitting at $0 on the cap. Um, I also noticed that Toronto, because today they had to release their opening day rosters. Some teams haven't like formally released it, but only have submitted it to the NHL. But also, Toronto literally has $4 in cap space. Literally $4. Like less than a coffee at Starbucks.
Like that's
Like,
so insane to me. And just knowing the increments that we use to pay players,
yeah,
it's like $750,000. Like $4 is so insane to me. I just think it's so funny that it's worth mentioning at this point because it's like that's so funny. Like,
not.
but it would be even funnier if Vancouver wasn't sitting at exactly zero, which I also think is funny. But to me, just knowing the way that players' contracts work, like it almost makes more sense to be at zero than four. I don't even know how things add up to make that work, but I think it's hilarious.
I Yeah, I don't. I couldn't tell you. Not a capologist, unfortunately. Yeah,
Does
insane.
anyone really like who knows? But yeah, that was kind of like the brunt of the hockey stuff, specific to plays and individuals and things like that in the sport world that we wanted to talk about. But this week has also just been shitty across the
Yeah,
board when it comes to off the ice stuff. And it obviously needs to be spoken about because just by the nature of the sport, it's so heavily ingrained in everything that goes on in the sport. So it's always difficult to talk about and bring light to, but it's something that can't be walked around. So we wanted to talk a little bit about some of the specific things that have happened this week, and these are only the ones that come to the surface, right? And it's only been 7 goddamn days, and we're hearing about all these absolute nightmare stories, and
yeah.
it's frustrating, it's hard, it's hard to talk about, it's hard to come to grips with the fact that the sport that you love watching the players play and off the ice you hear about all these awful fucking
Yeah.
god awful things going on, and it's hard.
Yeah. We're the things we're going to talk about. We're going to provide a content warning, a trigger warning, for things like sexual assault, and grooming. The first story we have to talk about is Ian Cole, currently a defenseman on the um, Tampa Bay Lightning. I'm also going to preface this with I'm not that eloquent of a speaker, so I'll try my best to give you the the bullet points of what happened here. But regardless, so over the weekend, an anonymous Twitter account by the name of Emily Smith came out with some allegations. Also, we're going to call them allegations for legal sense, but on this podcast, we obviously believe women in their stories. But she came out mentioning that she was groomed by Ian Cole for I believe 4 years, starting when she was a minor in high school. Um, Basically, she mentioned that he would pressure her to come to the hotel rooms that he was staying in. Um, that he would ask for her to come in her schoolgirl outfits. Would often would brag to his teammates about sexual encounters he had with her while she was a minor. Would manipulate her. Basically, all around, this guy is a piece of shit. Um, there's a much longer statement. I would suggest if you're able to go read it. My words are not the words of the victim. All we can do is amplify their voice. The actions that have come out from that, the Tampa Bay Lightning have suspended him from the team, but that is currently with pay, which sucks. I would say this shouldn't be. Sorry, they've suspended him pending an investigation. This should be more than just an investigation by the team. This should be a criminal investigation. And the in regards to the suspended him with pay, this could be potentially that could be a CBA thing. I'm not too sure if it is a CBA thing. That sucks. Throw the CBA out, or it's not CBA. The
Like
player
NHLPA kind of
PA.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Regardless, though, Ian Cole is a piece of shit. I think we can both agree on that. There's not really a take to have on this. The guy sucks.
Yeah, like the take that I have, right, is more in regards to the people who are
Yeah.
witnessing all of this kind of going on the internet, right? Because, it's so easy to just not say shit when something happens. Like, obviously, a lot of people, like, I've seen, a lot of people will mention it's like, hey, anytime something comes up about sexual assault or anything like that, it's okay to not say anything. Like, a lot of people have had rough experiences with it, like, especially if you're a survivor yourself. Like, you don't necessarily have to, constantly feel the need to put yourself out there because it's really hard to kind of relive that and experience that and all those kinds of things. Like it's okay to say nothing, and that comes from the other side as well. Obviously, there is always a chance with things that they're false allegations. With anything that ever comes out, it could be true, it could be false. But if your first instinct is to say, "Oh, this could be fake. Oh, this could be fake," why don't you just shut up instead? Because if you know hockey players and if you've grown up in an area where hockey players are amplified as much as they are in Canada and in some parts of America, you understand that this is not an egregious thing to believe
No.
that a hockey player would do. You know how these guys talk about women, how they think about women, how they act around women, how they treat women to their faces and behind their backs. If this is overtly surprising to you, then that means you've never spent any amount of time with a group of hockey players because everyone knows the kinds of guys that would easily do this kind of thing. And it's sickening. And if that's really the route that you want to go, first, check yourself. Second, just say nothing, right? Because Emily Smith, whoever this person may be, she may have tweeted this and logged right off, right? Because it's really hard to relive these experiences as a survivor, right? Like it's painful, it's really frustrating and all these kinds of things. But anyone who follows you who is also a victim or a survivor of sexual assault or any kind of sexual misconduct is going to see you immediately going to bat for someone who could have done some really, really awful things. So why don't you just shut up and say nothing instead of immediately, going to the defense of the person who is in this situation, done some really awful, illegal, disgusting, jail-worthy things.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well said.
Yeah, and it's the kind of thing that, it's not an isolated event. We saw a couple days later, the Condors, right? The team put out a statement that not only has someone been, accused of, someone has been convicted of one of their coaching staff. I don't remember exactly
I
what the statement is.
I have
Do you
this.
have it pulled up?
I do. Yeah. So the statement from the Condors was earlier today we became aware that the Bakersfield Condor head athletic trainer Chad Drown had been charged with a very serious felony offenses related to contacting a minor to commit a sexual offense in the state of California. We are shocked and dismayed by the news, and Mr. Drown has been relieved of his duties immediately.
I have a hard time believing that they're shocked to hear about this. Maybe, that he was convicted or whatever, but I'm sure they've known about this investigation as it's been going on because people don't just get charged overnight, right? So I find that frustrating in that regard. I don't know if this individual had been suspended throughout or anything like that, or if he was working with the team up until the date of conviction or anything like that. But again, piece of shit, put him away, never see the
Yeah.
light of day in the league ever again.
These
Please and
people
thank you.
these people do not deserve to have their a glamorous and a great job that is in hockey. Hockey is a privilege, and these people do not deserve to be in it, in the culture. There's many issues relating to hockey culture, and obviously we've seen that kind of come out um, throughout the summer regarding all the Hockey Canada stuff as well too, which is kind of the next thing that we have to talk about as well too. First off, you had the people speaking out in Parliament on behalf of Hockey Canada, notably Andrea Skinner, who had some pretty brutal quotes come out. I'll read them for you here. These are the two that stuck out to me. One of them is by her, and so she says, "I think that it will be very." This is a tweet from Rick Westhead, which, by the way, thank God for Rick Westhead. What an absolute, what a gem. He's been fantastic throughout all this. But anyways, here's the tweet. Andrea Skinner on the prospect of removing Hockey Canada leaders, and then the quote. "I think that it will be very impactful in a negative way to our boys and girls who are playing hockey. Will the lights stay on in the rink? I don't know. We can't predict that. And to me, that's not a risk worth taking. To imply that without Hockey Canada, the lights in the rink won't stay on. She's making the implication right now that without Hockey Canada, maybe, hockey will stop being played in Canada. That is an absolute joke. She's putting the cart ahead of the horse, saying that Hockey Canada is the reason why, we have such a predominantly, a predominant hockey forward. I'm not even sure how to explain it.
A hockey like centric country,
Yeah,
really.
exactly. Yeah, I mean it's our national winter sport, and people even think of Canada and think of hockey as its national sport. Um, yeah, so she had that quote, which is absolutely insane. Um, and then here's another one from Rick Westhead that I also thought was just bonkers. So Liberal MP Lisa Hefner says, "We're hearing of athletes acting like a pack of hooligans," and asks Skinner to discuss hockey culture. Skinner points out two politicians last week who were accused of sexual assault and says, "We should not just sit back and condemn hockey." Basically saying there are other people, other people have done these awful shitty things. It like she's basically sitting there and going, "Why are we pointing out all the awful things about hockey culture in this meeting where we discuss all the bad things about hockey culture?" Like,
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Trying to take the onus off of yourself and the organization you represent in this situation is so stupid because, like, why would anyone in any situation ever think it's a good call when they're being, criticized and rightfully so for the actions of, the organization they represent or whatever, and be like, okay, but let's look at all the other organizations that have shit. Yeah, every organization does, but this isn't about them. This is about you. So
mhm.
take some ownership for what your organization has goddamn done to the sport in this country, and then let's go from there. Please and thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Reactions to this. Well, since then, Andrea Skinner has stepped down from her. I believe she was a volunteer, in quotes, volunteer, likely getting paid, head of the board of Hockey Canada. So she stepped down, which is good because she absolutely shouldn't be a part of Hockey Canada, especially if she's going to make shitty excuses for what has happened. And then other reactions from that, you've seen a lot of the provinces' hockey foundations starting to pull and withdraw their support for Hockey Canada. Notably, the ones I've written down here are Manitoba, Newfoundland, and Nova Scotia. I know Hockey Alberta said they weren't withdrawing support, which big surprise. But either way, I hope we see a lot more provinces withdrawing their support for Hockey Canada. Further to that, there's also been a lot of the big sponsors of Hockey Canada who have pulled out. The biggest ones being notably, excuse me, being Canadian Tire's pulled out, Tim Hortons, TELUS, Scotiabank. I know specifically that Canadian Tire has said that they are permanently withdrawing their funding, which is great to see.
It was
I
big.
think
That was awesome.
did Nike end up pulling their funding? I believe they have.
They pulled
Um,
it in some capacity, not to the same extent as Canadian Tire, I believe,
yeah,
but I think they've, like suspended it or whatever the term is that they're using for the temporary withhold or whatever it is.
for sure. The main ones that we are, the big ones that are remaining, I would say, are Bauer Hockey is by far the biggest one. I would say. Then there's ones like Esso, Sport Check, Pepsi, along the lines of that. Hopefully, we see a bigger reaction. As more things always come out, you get more reactions, more pressure put on these companies to withdraw their funding. Unfortunately, in our capitalist society, the only way to um, you know uh, promote change is with wallets and money, unfortunately.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
but at the same time, that means that these companies do hold power, and if enough people are saying, you really have to stop supporting these people, we've already seen four really big sponsors back away from there.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, like you said, it is the reality of the kind of the company, no, pardon me, the country, the market that we live in and stuff like that. It's the only way you have to put your money where your mouth is, otherwise change isn't going to happen. And I'm glad to see that people are doing it because that's all that you'll be able to do. We can all sit and we can yell on Twitter and we can cry about it, but without a financial aspect of this, nothing's going to change, nothing's going to happen, right? So, and the one thing I would just kind of add about Andrea Skinner, we also spoke about this, is that she's been board chair since 2020. I'm loving, like, I'm fine with people shitting on her. Go for it, do it. Her quotes were dumb. Her organization is dumb. But she's not the only one. She wasn't there when the 2015 thing happened. She wasn't there when all of these other things have happened as well. So more people need to take the fall before anyone's going to be even remotely satisfied with how this
Yeah.
is going, because it's a nightmare from top to bottom. And people need to be held accountable for their actions, because it's disgusting, it's gross, it's fucking sickening, and I'm tired of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Change has to come.
And it's not going to come if you keep having, like, the VP of comms from Montreal, who, goes online and, specifically says
Jeez.
Logan Mailloux was not convicted of, sexual misconduct. He was convicted of spreading sexual photos of someone without their consent. Like, that's a fucking defense for what he did. Like, that makes any
Yeah.
sense at all whatsoever. Like, she's not an idiot. Stuff like that. If you're gonna keep coming out here and defending people who don't deserve any defense at all, what's ever gonna get better? Nothing. Nothing
Yeah.
is gonna get better.
And that was in response to Logan Mailloux getting his ELC, because the Canadians feel they should bring him in and support him because he deserves the support, because he's, it's sickening and it's frustrating. We, you know as hockey fans, we want this sport to move forward and become much more accessible. The hockey is for everyone tagline just is not true. It isn't. It isn't. Maybe it's something that the NHL should strive to, but with, people who have done terrible things constantly getting PTOs, getting second chances, getting drafted in the first round even after the player says do not draft me. Like,
There are no consequences in
what
this league.
what
We
is there
saw,
even to say? Like,
and there's no consequences within the culture either. Like, obviously, we saw the Steve Simmons thing earlier this week as
fuck.
well, with him using Wayne Simmons as a token for
Yeah.
something that, like, no consequences. Nothing's gonna happen to that guy. Things will go on as normal. Literally, the last time we've seen a consequence was Joel Quenneville getting fired for literally being part of the worst sexual assault scandal that I've heard of in so long.
Yeah.
And it's just disgusting. Like, why is that what it takes? Why don't we punish people for doing things that are wrong? Not just so abysmally wrong that there's no way to get out of it unless you hold someone accountable. Because you know that if they weren't under such public scrutiny, they wouldn't have done that, right? Which is so frustrating. It's so infuriating. And it's like, you don't even know what to say. Like,
Yeah.
obviously, we've been talking about this for a while, but it's just you're saying words, but there's only a limit to what you can say that even represents how you feel, because it's so frustrating. It's so disgusting. And, we want to enjoy the sport that we grew up playing and that we grew up loving and that we grew up, enjoying, and not having to worry about all the pieces of shit that are involved in it.
Yeah.
And, helping promote that culture is just, it's going to be a hard change, and it's going to have to start somewhere. And, things like the Hockey Diversity Alliance and the Black Girl Hockey Club, like things like that, we need to, be better supports for them, because that's where change starts and that's where it
Yeah.
grows from, right? So
Absolutely. Last thing on that, Steve Simmons should absolutely have his press pass revoked by the
oh
Leafs.
god, yeah.
Um, I, so much shit has happened over just the past like 3 days, not even a week, 3 days. Like, it sucks. It really fucking sucks to be like, this is the thing that I dedicate my life to and have loved. When people ask me who I am and what, what's the first thing I say? I had a work meeting the other day, where I was being introduced to my new staff, or as a new employee. And I had to, offer up some sort of, icebreaker. This is who Brady is. And my first thing was, I'm a diehard hockey fan. If you look at me, if you're watching the video, you can see I have so many jerseys behind me, and that's not even all of them. What, like, I'm not even the type of people who like, who are really affected by this. I've never been a victim of anything like that, thank God. But it's fucking awful. It's awful to be a part of this. It's
And you
awful
feel
to
ashamed
stand up.
to like
Exactly.
your favorite
Thank you.
sport.
Thank you. That's exactly what I was trying to say. Like, it's brutal to stick my head out and go, I'm a hockey fan, and this is what my life is centered around. When constantly hockey does nothing to hold its end of the bargain, to be like, this is why people should like us.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I, obviously feel the same way when it's like, you want it so bad. You want to help be part of the change. You want to enjoy it. And,
Mhm.
all you get back is people shitting on you and, people feeling unsafe because of things that have gone on in the sport that you care about. And it's like, God damn it. God,
Yeah,
why can't people just be good people? It's exhausting, it's tiring, and part of people becoming bad people is growing up and being cultivated in an area that makes them feel like they're more than they are.
yeah,
And that's where it
and they
has
can
to
get away
start, and
with
that's where it
anything.
ends. Exactly. Absolutely. I don't even know what else to say on this. Like, we're talking, it's the kind of stuff that needs to be discussed and needs to be talked about because if we don't bring these things to the attention of hockey fans, nothing's ever going to happen. Like you said, money and public scrutiny are the only things that people actually care about. So that's what it's going to, if that's what it's going to take for them to make tangible action, then so be it. I will scream about it from the rooftops until something happens. I can't control the funding piece, but I can sure as hell contribute to the public scrutiny piece. So I will continue to do that. But beyond that, it's what else can you say? What else can you
Yeah,
do?
it sucks. It really sucks. Um, yeah. Moving
So we
on.
knew we were going to chat about this, and we knew that it was going to be hard to transition into it, transition out of it. So we just thought we'd wrap up the episode with a game because I love games and I don't really know what else to do, what else to say. And I thought the most fitting thing for this would be to come up with the most ridiculous game of all time to kind of bring some joy back into the sport that we care about. So, Brady, here's my game for you today. So I have for you 9 phrases, and what they
Uh-oh.
are is they are player names in disguise. So, for example, if I were to say, "Who is the hockey player lettuce vehicle?" Oh, that's Kale McCarr. Right? So it's kind of like a little play
Oh
on words
no.
thing. Some of them are synonyms, some of them are like associated words kind of thing. I don't know how well this is going to go. We will see. I can give you some hints as we go along. But we'll start it off with the player who is hauling cost.
Calling cost?
Hauling cost.
Hauling cost. Hauling cost. Carey Price.
There you go. One for
There we go.
one.
Okay, so
Okay,
this is
okay,
this
you're
is gonna
good.
be a game where I either get it right away or I sit here and go,
Yeah.
So I'll save everyone the dead air time, and if I can't think of it within the first 10 seconds, I'll just say no. Anyways, number two.
This one's pretty bad. We'll see.
Oh no.
Singing algebra boy.
Singing algebra boy.
Yes.
Matheson. Singing. Math. Mike. Oh, Mike. Yeah, Mike Matheson. Yeah.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
you go. Good
I
job.
I was like I couldn't put two and two together for the
I
for
guess you're not a
yeah.
singing algebra boy then.
Well, I okay, well, whatever. Anyways, continue.
Okay. Ooh, this one's rough too. Alley Swag, Ontario.
Alley swag,
Pally Swag,
Cali swag,
Ontario. Yes.
Cali swag, Ontario. Cali swag, Ontario. Cali swag, Ontario. I can't I'm going to pass on this one. I can't get it.
Okay. So do you know who Cali Swag District is?
No.
Okay, they're like a hip hop group.
Okay.
Okay. So Ontario. So Cali Swag. This one was Dougie Hamilton. So Cali Swag District is the group
Oh,
that sings "Teach Me How to Dougie,"
yeah.
and Hamilton,
Okay, got
Ontario.
it.
So
Got it. Got it. Got it.
yeah,
Got it. Got it. Got it. Got
darn,
it.
darn. Okay, well, 2-1, 2-1. So
Okay.
okay, next one. This one's really bad. It doesn't really make a lot of sense, but always gotta. Paul Flat.
Paul Flat?
This one's really a stretch.
Paul? Like Paul.
Paul, like the name.
Hmm. Paul Flat.
Yeah, I'll
Paul
give you a
Flat.
hint on this one actually because
Oh, okay.
I
Wait,
want
wait,
you to
wait,
get
wait,
it.
wait, wait, wait. Is it Logan Stanley? The only I didn't know about the Paul to Logan part of it, but Stanley, the only thing Flat Stanley was the first thing that popped in my head.
Good.
Good
Yeah,
good one.
it's Flat Stanley. Thank you. Thank you. That one was like the worst because neither of those are
Can
synonyms. I
can
just
you
really
explain
wanted to.
can you explain the Paul? I don't understand that. Am
Logan
I
Paul. Logan Paul.
Oh,
That's
okay,
where I
okay,
was
okay,
going
okay,
with
okay.
that.
Got it,
Yeah.
got it, got it, got it, got it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
Okay, this one also not great. None of these are great, so I should stop saying that before I do it. But indebted ability.
Indebted ability. Indebted ability. Indebted ability. Able ability. Capable. Capobianco.
No.
I'll pass on this one. I can't think of it.
Okay, what would
Indebted
be if
ability.
someone has like a superb ability? What is that?
Oh, Owen Power. Fuck.
So indebted.
Owen Power. That's good. You know what? I'll give you that one. That's pretty good. That's pretty
Okay.
good. Owen Power.
Okay. Okay.
Sorry.
I'll take it.
Yeah,
All right, the
I'll give
next
you that
one.
one.
Lift shades.
Lift shades. Cody. No. Shades. Well, I'm thinking shades to glasses. That's why.
Oh,
I was
interesting.
thinking
Okay.
Cody Glass. But shades to glass. No, not stop. No,
It's
stop saying
not. It's
glasses.
not
Okay, wait.
glasses.
What was
It's
the name
not
again?
glasses.
What was the name again? What was the first name?
Lift shades.
Carrie. I'm just gonna go with Carrie again. Carrie. Carrie.
It's not Carrie.
Carrie. No, not Carrie. Lift glasses? No, lift shades.
Lift shades,
Lift
yes.
shades. Oh man, I'm losing my brains.
Or I could go
I'll just
lift colors. Lift colors.
gray or something. I don't know. I'll pass on this one. Got to keep it
It's
interesting.
Jack Hughes.
Oh, got it. Oh, that's okay. I see you. Okay, continue.
This one's really bad. This might be the worst one of all of them. So if you can get this one, I'll be happy.
Uh-oh.
Proton dog.
Proton dog.
Yes.
So Adam dog. Adam McQuaid, Adam Lowry, Adam Boakvis, Adam Adam dog, you said, right?
Yes.
Dog. Adam Lowry. I don't know. Is Lowry a dog? Is McQuaid a dog?
Adam Fox.
Adam Fox. Oh, okay. Not dog.
I know.
Is a
What
fox,
is another way to like? They're not a
um
cat. So
are they
I
like
think
are
they're
they
a
a
dog.
hound? No. Like
Girl, I
no.
don't know.
What is a fox?
Google
Googling
it.
what is a fox?
It's probably gonna pull up that like awful video from like 2011.
what does the fox say? Is
I
the
was at like
fox
the Woods Brewing Company a couple months ago, and they were playing that as like their music.
I was at the Club Region Casino and they were playing that the other day.
I don't know which
crazy.
is worse.
They are omnivorous mammals. Of
But are they like
the
canines?
Oh, they are canines. Yes.
Yes. Okay, that's
So they
where I
are
was. At least I was right on
So
that.
you know what? I'll give you that. That one was tough.
I got 2 left, and I also take it back. The last one was not my worst one. This one is my worst one.
Oh, God. Ville
In
Heinola.
sync. Alyssa's husband. Okay. In sync grinder.
In sync grinder. In sync, like not the band or the band.
No, like the band.
The band in sync grinder. So Justin grinder. Justin Abdulkader. Justin. I actually can't think of many Justins in the league. I also could be completely wrong on the Justin side of things. Oh wait, was Justin Timberlake in NSYNC or
Yes, he
Backstreet
was. Yes, he
Boys?
was.
Okay, I always get the two mixed up. Justin. What was it? Long, you said?
Grinder.
Why did I say long? What? Okay. Coffee. Justin. I can't. That's
Okay, can I tell you,
I'm getting no. We can just move on. I'm wrong. What is it?
it's JT Miller.
Oh, okay. Beer.
Okay.
Is Miller
last one?
I would have went with beer.
Yeah,
or
like
something like that.
Pardon me?
I would have went with beer. Cause like
Oh yeah, I
Miller
could have gone with
beer.
that. I work in like a production plant. So literally everyone, it's like, oh, like he's a jig grinder, like all these kinds of things. So I'm like,
people who don't work in production plants won't get it. What can't relate?
leave me alone. I literally work in HR, so don't come for me.
That's rough.
Okay, here's the last one. This one's my favorite. It's not funny. I just like saying it. Check rock.
Czech Rock. Czech Rock. So Mark Stone.
Yeah.
Yeah, hell yeah.
So that's it. That's the end of the game. I think you might have passed. I stopped keeping score, but you got one. No, you did not.
I don't think I did. I think
Two.
was there nine,
Yeah.
9 total?
There were nine, so I
Or
think you got
9?
like three or four. So, you know what? Good enough. But
Good enough.
yeah,
Damn
so
it.
that's what Alyssa's brain, will do from time to time. Just the most random stuff that's never useful, but now it is. So who knows? If anyone else has any like fun ideas of people's names that you could incorporate into this game, please let us know because they're hilarious.
Also
It'd be
let
very
us
funny.
also let us know if you were able to get these.
Yeah,
Or if you have a better version of the name that Lyss had. You
because
can you
they're
can
probably
you
out
can you
there.
can roast her on it. Specifically,
Yeah.
I think Miller is a tough one. I can't believe
Come on, a
beer is beer.
millwright or
Sure, whatever, man.
I hire so many machinists, man. Like I feel like grinders are such a I don't know. Anyways, besides the point. Besides the point.
Hell yeah.
Lots of stuff coming up in the NHL this week. Most notably, the start of the regular season for
Let's
or
go.
for the teams that aren't in Europe. So that's exciting. Lots of stuff to come. We started with the first couple of episodes with talking about things like predictions and all that, just to kind of fill the space because who knows how much there is to talk about in preseason and training camp. But even with the last couple of days of training camp and all this week, there was so much to talk about. So we're looking forward to things getting started and having much to discuss upcoming on the next couple episodes. So thank you so much for everyone once again for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed the episode as always. Make sure you follow us on YouTube, on Twitter, on TikTok, all those socials. We're out there having a good time. So we thank everyone for the ongoing support with our new little startup here, and we look forward.
Hello. So it looks like our recording actually cut off right at the end of the episode. But just to finish off Lys's thought here, we look forward to the NHL season starting up this week. Can't wait to record for you guys next week. Hope you guys all stay safe. Have yourselves a good one. Thank you for listening.